Hello and welcome to Founders Amplified, where we spotlight underrepresented founders who are driving innovation and impact across various industries and sectors across the globe. I'm your host, Narayan Kulkarni, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Today's guest is Monique Bruce. As the founder and CEO of ArisWorks, Monique specializes in empowering startups and small businesses with AI-driven solutions that streamline operations, enhance scalability, and maximize market impact. As a self-taught software engineer and entrepreneur, Monique has leveraged her technical expertise to build cutting-edge platforms that drive real-world results, whether optimizing business processes, improving customer engagement, or bridging critical gaps in underserved communities. Growing up as an Afro-Latina, resilience and adaptability shape Monique's journey. These values fuel her inclusive leadership style, ensuring that the businesses and communities she works with are equipped with the tools they need to thrive. So, now that you know a little bit about Monique, let's dive into the conversation. Welcome to Founders Amplified, Monique. Great to have you with us. How are you today?
I am good, Narayan. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. Thanks again for joining us. Now, to kick things off, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey. Can you tell us what led you to become a founder, and if there was any moment or experience that really sparked that decision?
Yeah, such a great question. So for me, I became a founder because I didn't really see representation when it came to the startup industry. I really saw the consequences of not having BIPOC people as decision makers, and more so they're looked at as service providers. And I really wanted to change that and really start breaking down the glass ceiling to give more opportunities, not only for people like myself, to be more as decision makers, but for the next generation to come in and really use that opportunity to make huge changes in the world, especially with AI.
I see. It's cool to hear that you're want to make changes with AI, and I also applaud you for wanting to be a change for BIPOC representation. Can you tell me more about the innovative way that you're using AI in what you do?
Yeah, so what we do at ArisWorks is we build software products, mostly SaaS products for startup companies. And our biggest goal is to make sure that these products that are being built are culturally sensitive. So again, being the decision maker at the table. Now, most of the time, AI is a reflection of the world. And because the world currently already has biases in most of our history, we want to make sure that we are getting rid of the biases that are going into the new age technology, especially when it comes to access. So a lot of AI products are not really um, serving the smaller to brick and mortar companies. So we want to make sure, or at least what we're trying to make sure is we want to educate our community on how to implement simple tools to really lower down their operational costs by 50%, especially when a lot of them are losing funding because of big corporations. Um, Culture appreciation and representation is also a really big thing. We want to make sure that our artists and our culture that's being used for most AI models are actually benefiting our community and not hurting our community. So things like rap songs, where most of them really degrade a lot of the people in our community, is not a good representation. So saying, like, instead of using like Biggie Smalls or Diddy or Kanye, we want to make sure that people are talking about people that are like Common or Alicia Keys or India Arie. So really just changing the narrative.
That's amazing to hear. Can you tell me more about, like, in an ideal sense, what would a really culturally responsive, like really empowering form of AI for the BIPOC community look like, in your view?
That is an amazing question. Um, I I think I want to take a step back from that question. So, not so much of what it would look like, but so much on had access to build it. So, what I've seen around this time is there's not enough diversity on software development teams to, think about, okay, and as simple as it sounds, colors. Most people are colorblind, but until you've been discriminated enough times, you're not going to, think twice about that. Or let's say if there is a facial recognition, can it see my skin tone compared to somebody who is like darker than me? And is it making sure that we are not looking similar? Can it make sure that it sees me, but can it define like my hair texture? So there's 3C curls, there's 4C curls, there's 2C curls. So making sure that we're adding things like that into the algorithm are extremely important. So that goes into diversity and inclusion. Um, the way I speak is also another big thing. So we want to make sure that when you are getting voice prompts, do you hear when I speak, or do you hear somebody that speaks a little more with ebonics? That's also going to be a huge thing to make sure people feel included in that.
Could you share a little bit more about how your work at Aris Works works or like works towards such a vision? I
Yeah.
know you talked a little bit about that, but would love to hear a little bit more because it's really amazing and would love to understand how that takes form in what you do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is impact. Um, I see a lot of people making so many great opportunities when it comes to, let's say, climate, but not even considering on how that's going to impact a small community, especially the minority community. Um, one of them was like a farming application, but asking them, hey, the people who've, farmed for many years, have you considered implementing this technology into, let's say Ghana? This would be perfect for them. This would really increase their economy. Or having people, from Ghana being able to have access to that and giving them more of a reasonable rate, thinking things like that and being at the table, making sure they consider that. Or um, if they're going to consider things like another company was for education and making sure that people who have mental illnesses or let's say mental disabilities such as ADHD, autism are still going to be able to understand the coursework that they're getting. But are you working with schools in the minority community? Because normally they're the last ones to get access to that. But when you work with them in the beginning and have the opportunity to do clinical trials with that community in the beginning, you're giving them access to new technology to really advance.
Well said. I'm also, I mean, as we're sharing, I was like listening and thinking. You've talked about a lot of different applications, aspects of why this is important. Were there any particular experiences you've had, things you've learned that kind of shape your perspectives and give you a unique perspective on what you're doing with RSWorks and with the
Um,
vision that you described?
no, of course, I think the biggest thing is working with minority communities and, getting them in the right room. I think that's the biggest thing and creating this technology where they feel like they have more of a team player that's from their community that understands like the impact that it's actually going to make. Because I feel like a lot of times when people from the minority community have a startup, no one can really emphasize what they're trying to build and being able to storytell and actually build it for them. Um, on top of that, I think we're also giving opportunities for people that are in software development to actually sit on this project. And I think that's the biggest impact that we have. So it's not so much recreating the wheel of another software development company. It's more so just adding representation to your company with the people who need to be sitting as decision makers, if that answers your question.
It does, partly. What I'm also interested in is, have you had any particular experiences at RS Works or prior to that which have shaped your perspectives on representation and the need for representation, especially in AI?
I think, yeah. Um, and this just goes back to a lot of companies ask for consulting when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And it's because they won't hire a diverse team and they expect you to educate them, which gets frustrating because you can solve a lot of your problems by just having people from that community at the table with you instead of going to a third party to educate you. It just doesn't make sense to me, if that makes sense. So I think emphasizing them more to look at us as not service providers, but actual business partners. That's what we're trying to make an impact on. Because I think for a long time, when it came to the BIPOC community, we're always looked as service providers. But then when something goes wrong, you want us to solve the problem for you or teach you how to move forward. And for us, that looks like a business partner, especially when we're the ones coming with the innovation.
I see. I appreciate your perspective. And I know when there are discussions on impact, one aspect of impact is emotional. One aspect of impact is there's of course representation, but there can also be ways in which it is seen externally and or measured. In your view, how would the positive impact that you're trying to create, in what ways might that be measured or like determined?
No, that's a good question. So I think it could be measured by the amount of successful companies that are funded through VCs that are actually have Black owned founders. And measuring not only the financial gains that they're making compared to their competitors with a diverse team, compared to a competitor that has less of a diverse team, to also I would say, the climate impact that they're having, but also the social impact that they're having on a community. I think when you have a diverse team, you have a stronger social impact because now you have more people that can relate to you versus this one company. Um, when you're trying to sell a product, the honest truth is you can sell a trash product, which is why Tesla exists, but because people like them, they'll buy. So I think if you can touch and relate to a larger community with the diverse team, I think you create more of an impact. So I think that's how investors need to start looking at it.
I see. Thanks for sharing. One thing that I heard from what you were sharing was the importance of process. And it sounds like from your experience, the like engaging diverse teams with AI, or just in general, there is a different dynamic and way in which they partner. I've seen this, for example, in my experiences in volunteering, in mentoring with diverse teams. The dynamic looks different, and that can lead to very, very unique, very powerful, very impactful decisions. And so that just makes me wonder, in your work with RSWorks and your way of doing business, is there a unique way in which you partner or hold space or work with your clients in order to really bring forward that change?
Yeah, so if I work with a new client that is looking for more diversity and inclusion, I think the biggest thing is seeing I always ask them, how can you benefit the community? Because right now you're coming in selling us something, but what is it going to do in the long term to really, make a big impact and change the community for, the best possible way? Then on top of that, I'll always ask who on your team is going to sit in a leadership position that's from from the BIPOC community. Because it's one, again, I think I just, coming back to you can't constantly ask somebody to be your educator, but having somebody to sit with you and, be in that leadership position.
Hmm, I see.
I don't feel like I answered your question fully.
No, like you provided like interesting perspective on the insight into the perspectives that are taken. But I was also curious, yeah, to address that further. Are there particular like processes that you use, like things that you track, like ways in which you bring certain stakeholders into developing technologies that are you feel are unique or would lead to that impact?
Um, yeah, I think more so just the training models that we use for our AI is more of the impact that we're looking for. So making sure that the training models that we have are culturally sensitive, if that makes sense.
So to me, I appreciate your perspective. I understand some elements of that, but our audience may not. So could you tell us more, in your view, what does a culturally sensitive AI model take into account that current AI models might not? I know you talked about that a little bit, but would love to hear more perspectives on this.
No, no, 100%. So the biggest thing is the community already deals with being over policed. But if you're using an AI on top of that, it's not going to solve your problem. However, if you have a training model and I use the same training model for policing and put it towards education, I think just pivoting those companies on how they want to interact with the community um, would be beneficial because again, you don't want to come in with, at least when it comes to surveillance, because at the end of the day, you're taking the data, but like having the community know or having access to that data is going to be very important. So being transparent and giving access so that way we can use the same data to, help lower down on police brutality and, be a part of the profiling, let's say, again, facial recognition or reading over someone's data. Let's say if they were a minor offender, but the AI is constantly tracking them down um, every time they go to the store. That that doesn't seem fair. So
Yeah.
going in and training the AI model on, let's say, um, giving them like, 90 days before, checking on them again, considering their mental health. Do they have access to healthcare? Thinking about those things first before running into if they go to the store, like let's say three times a week, it looks like they might try and rob that same store. Does that make sense?
Definitely does. One thing, one word that you mentioned that I want to highlight, and I appreciate you said this, was transparency. I think transparency in the data that goes in, the transparency in how it's handled is really important. And I know, like, for example, when talking about responsible AI, like transparency is a really big aspect of that. And that leads me to just, I'm curious, in your perspective, how um, are culturally sensitive AI and responsible AI similar or different? Where might they overlap? Where might one not include the other?
Um, I think I think they would be one of the same, don't you think? Um, because again, it's the AI is just a reflection of the world. And in order for history not to repeat itself, I think we all need to be a part of training a new model and, being safe and testing more often versus just allowing things to go out into the public, especially when you're using it for government purposes such as surveillance or, giving someone access to like being able to apply for a credit card or, giving someone access to a visa. If we already have biases in our systems, I don't think, AI is really going to solve any of that until we correct the information that's going into it first.
Totally agree. Yes. As the adage says, garbage
You also, I
in,
think,
garbage out in data analytics. So yeah, I totally can see that from what you're sharing.
yeah. Um, I guess I'm more curious, and I know I'm supposed to be speaking, but as someone who's also from the BIPOC community and using all of these applications that were mostly created by somebody that was not from the BIPOC community, how do you currently feel?
So
Especially when it
in
deals with
my
like your healthcare, your education, your finances.
It's a great question. And I appreciate that you're asking me a question as well. So, in my experience, yes, I think that in many cases, it captures a majority of the world and it can be very useful. But I do think that there are certain exclusions that it does not capture. So, I think one classic example is if I ask for AI to generate an image of an Indian American health administrator, that person is naturally going to have a slightly lighter skin tone, or they might have their hair done in a certain way, which I don't always have that. Or I think another thing is if I were to ask an AI model about major like health issues that an Indian American has, diabetes would probably be one of the biggest, but it may not capture others as easily. Or it may, for example, capture the importance of mental health, but it may not really go into how that disproportionately affects women, South Asian or Indian American women versus men, and there is a disparity there. So I do think that I do feel that in many cases there is value and like AI has come very far, but also it misses many nuances for which there needs to be subject matter expertise. There need to be real voices that are incorporated, and there needs to be much more sensitivity and feedback from users. So that while consensus definitions do contribute to that, there's also an ability to personalize and have that. And I do see that coming on the horizon. I just believe that it's necessary for that to be accelerated. That's also why I appreciate that you're here, because I see you as one of the individuals who is in your way of doing business, but also in what you're creating through RS Works, someone who is contributing to that. So I also feel that more and more people in the BIPOC community are stepping up to be leaders. And I admire and respect that. And I feel very grateful and appreciative that that is the case. Hope
Thank
that
you so
answers
much
your
for that.
question.
That answers my question. I guess my next question would be, because we went over processes for mostly AI and software development. And as I said before, ours works is not recreating the wheel. I think we're just joining the um the workforce. We are joining the what is the word for it? The the fight? No, the what is it called?
Joining the
Geez,
cause.
I wouldn't say the cause, but the innovation, the trying to take the lead when it comes to who has control over the AI. And I think that's going to be huge when it comes to the BIPOC community, because when it comes to any type of technology, we're always the very last to get, we always get the scraps. And I think it's time that we stop waiting around and, working on their products and we start coming together and building the creator of our own and selling those products back to them. Because at the end of the day, having us at the table is going to be the biggest game changer. And I think we are not the minority, but we are the majority. And I think we need to start standing together and realizing that. And I think that's going to be important when it comes to ours works.
Indeed. I appreciate your perspective.
Of course, of course. Because the biggest thing is we are not just trying to be a software development company. We are trying to make sure that we are working with uh, our startup companies, but also our VCs, making sure that right now, when it comes to funding for new startups, the BIPOC, especially when it comes to the female BIPOC community, it's less than 2%. So it's like a fraction of that, which is extremely sad when you look at the innovation from our community, from the fact that Zoom calls are possible because of a Black woman, the fact that, NASA was even able to make it to the moon was because of a Black woman. The fact that we have central AC or fiber optics is because of a Black woman. And that just can't go unnoticed anymore.
Again, I appreciate your perspective. One thing that I think I'm also conscious and aware of, like it sounds like you've had a lot of rich engagement with different stakeholders on the journey that you're taking with RSWorks. What have been some of the major lessons learned that you wish you had known before starting the journey?
Um, that you don't need to, I think the biggest one is, at least in my community, we're always used to bootstrapping. And it has hindered us so much versus immediately asking for funding. I think when it comes to the other communities is they're more willing to ask for money upfront without any type of idea ready or MVP or product. They just have the idea and they'll just go get funding. So I think just changing the narrative to say, no, go ask for the funding, and then scale out immediately versus trying to take things slow. Because that's the only way we're going to compete with them.
I see. So, how can people find you and support your work?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me at arisworks.com, arisworks.com. They can also reach out to me and follow us on Instagram, arisworks LLC. And if they ever see me in public, definitely say hello. If they ever want to chat about AI or how to scale their company, or they want us to build you a product, we're definitely the ones to reach out to.
Awesome. And so now it's time for our signature question. So fill in the blank. I amplify.
I amplify BIPOC voices in technology.
Awesome. Well said. Short and sweet. Um, Amazing. Thanks so much, Monique, for sharing your journey and insights with us today. It's so cool to hear the innovative work you're doing with RSWorks and all the positive impacts that's enabling. And I also just want to pause, and I think so as I'm reflecting on this conversation, I mean, we've also, like, outside of today's conversation, talked a lot. Something I really appreciate about you and what you're doing is I appreciate the intentionality that you're bringing to wanting to center BIPOC voices in technology. And also, I really appreciate that you do it and you convey that with a sincerity and an understanding that there is challenge. There has been a lot of challenge, but you're approaching it with courage and optimism. And I appreciate that you are doing it in that way, and you are doing it with the community. So I celebrate you in the way that you are not just joining, but really driving a change in how there is representation, but also community building in this new era of AI.
Thank you so much. That means a lot, Narayan. I appreciate so much you offering me the time to be on your podcast and really just speak on just AI or just technology in general in our community. And yeah, I really hope that I can inspire more women in our community to want to start these companies and want to be a part of the race. because I am definitely here for you.
Well said again. Thanks so much, Monique, for being here. It was a real pleasure. It was a real honor to hear your thoughts and your perspective. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day and a future in what you're going to be doing with RSWorks and lots of amazing change making. May your
Thank you.
voice be amplified in and may the community be amplified as well.
Thank you so much, Narayan. It was a pleasure. And yeah, we will see each other soon. Cheers.
Cheers. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Founders Amplified. I hope you're feeling as inspired as I am. If you'd like to learn more about our guest and support them, check out the show notes for their details. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating, share it with someone you know, and follow us for more inspiring episodes like this one. If you're a founder who is driving innovation and impact in any industry or sector anywhere in the world and would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Check out the show notes for more information. And finally, remember that you, yes, you, have the power to amplify the voices around you. Whether you're a colleague, family member, friend, funder, mentor, or just another fellow human, your support matters. So I invite you to celebrate and uplift the underrepresented innovators in your life who are driving innovation and impact. Let's create a better future for everyone, together. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep amplifying.